But it reminded me of a story about a Dubliner, of Dublin, Ireland, who proposed to his girlfriend on St. Patrick's Day. And he presented her with a synthetic diamond. And the girlfriend takes one look at it and goes, oh, what are you trying to pull over here? It isn't even real. And he says, well, I know, but in honor of St. Patrick, I thought I'd buy you a shamrock. Okay, a bit of a gagger, okay. All right, a shamrock. St. Patrick was really quite a remarkable individual. I was reading again and kind of going back about who he was and his history. 5th century, this goes way back, 5th century missionary and bishop in Ireland. They call him the Apostle of Ireland. He's noted for spreading the Christian faith in Ireland and taking it all around. He's got a little autobiography called the Confessio, which is kind of fascinating. Some of the stories and his life was pretty amazing. He was stolen away into slavery in Ireland for quite a while in his youth as a young man, and that's when he really drew close to God and really cultivated a life of prayer there. And in touch with God's guidance, then he was led to how to escape out of that and go back to his family in Britain. And then guidance came again years later to go back to Ireland and be a missionary there. And the way was made clear. The guidance came and he followed it. And throughout the years he spent traveling around Ireland and spreading the word and attracting people to this faith. And he was not a very educated person, but the guidance kind of came to keep him safe, to spread his influence, to get people gathered around him. It spread like wildfire, kind of amazing, and under tremendous dangers quite often. He was guided and protected. There are a lot of miraculous legends associated with St. Patrick. Like one I've always liked, it's called the Miracle of the Deer, that St. Patrick and a group of followers and monks were traveling through the countryside, and they knew they were being pursued and were about to be set upon by attackers, and they began to recite this prayer. It's called the breastplate of St. Patrick, or the lorica. You could look it up if you wanted. I bind myself to God's strength to steer me, God's power to uphold me, God's wisdom to guide me, God's eye for my vision, God's ear for my hearing, God's word for my speech, God's hand to protect me, God's pathway before me, God's shield for my shelter, God's angels to guard me. They were reciting this prayer, and the legend goes that as they were about to be found and set upon by these attackers, they were changed into a herd of gentle deer. And that's all the attackers saw. Wonderful legends and stories about the power of this commitment to I'm guided and protected. God's power is with me. That's the stuff of legends, but it's also the stuff of daily life, it seems to me. The power of commitment, the power of a vow, and of a deep knowing and affirming of a truth that you're holding close. It comes with divine power. It's a very empowering thing, very focusing, very energizing. It worked for St. Patrick, and it works for all of us, I think, when we tap into that power to commit, that power of a commitment. So I was thinking about that today, the power of vows in our lives, the power of a vow. Vow power, kind of got a punch to it, don't we? Let's all say that. Vow power, I like that. There's real power in it. And it's really, Lent is a good time to think about it, because this is the time where we're sort of preparing for new growth, for spring, for renewal, maybe for resurrection if we've been in a dark place and we want to come out into greater light. This is a time of getting rid of what doesn't serve us, what blocks that, and maybe committing to what does serve us and what we want to take a stand for more strongly in our lives. So vows are powerful things. They're like kind of supercharged intentions. Supercharged intentions. Some of the synonyms are pledge, oath, promise, word of honor. Kids learn this really early in life, the power of that. Did you ever learn a pinky swear? Something like that? Word of honor. Sacred. it's a sacred thing, you give your word of honor. I think we forget that a little bit as we get older, but there's a power to giving your word of honor on something, to making a vow, a pledge. We're certainly all familiar with vows in our lives, vows honoring special commitments in our lives, wedding vows. Anybody take a wedding vow? Wedding vows. Certainly, there's an old phrase for that, to plate my troth. Troth is another word for an oath, I guess. How many have plated your troths? Yeah. It's an old-fashioned word for it. There's a power in that commitment. You've made a stand. You're gonna be with somebody. You're gonna make that work. You've made a commitment. We're certainly familiar with vows in our religious traditions. Priests, nuns, they all take vows, monastic vows. Buddhists take vows. Anybody that becomes Buddhist takes a refuge vow. And if they're serious about wanting to be a channel of compassion in the world, they might take a bodhisattva vow. Very, very common. Thousands, millions of people in the world take these vows. Certainly very common in a lot of professions, vows. I was thinking about police. They probably all take this vow when they graduate from police academies all around, to serve and protect, I think, abbreviated version of what that might be. In medicine, the Hippocratic Oath, now a vow. I think they have variations on that in different medical schools now, but it's still, it was always first do no harm. That was like a basic of the Hippocratic Oath. That's still an important thing about becoming a doctor. You take an oath. Certainly in the military, to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. Certainly in all our military branches of the military, the Marines, Semper Fi, always faithful. There's a lot of oaths, I think, in all the different branches. And all such vows, I think, are empowering. They're focusing, they're energizing. So what about all of us? You know, are there vows for us every day that can have the same impact, to empower, to clarify, to energize, to focus? I think so. I think there's a tremendous power in vows for all of us that I think we intuitively practice at times. We find ourselves in a place and we have this just realization, I need to commit to this. I need to commit to this practice. I need to do this every day. It's like it kind of rises up within us. I got to take an oath about this. No slipping around, thinking about it, but deciding. And it's something we don't have to wait on. It's something we can tap into every day, I think, to empower ourselves and focus ourselves more strongly. So I just had, these are some ideas about vows that came to mind that I would just want to share with you to reflect on as you think about your own relationship to oaths and troths and commitments and vows. First one is that I think it's important to realize that the universe rushes to support us. The universe rushes to support us when we make a vow, when we take a pledge, make a promise, a commitment to ourselves, to others. The universe rushes to support us. There's new strength, new energy that arises, new power arises in us in response to a vow. Through the scriptures, there's all kinds of amazed and grateful statements about how God empowered someone. I like this from Psalm 18. Oh my God, I can leap over a wall. I love that. The power of the universe responding to us when we take a stand for our higher selves in some way, for a higher good in some way. I've experienced this, and I bet some of you have as well. I think I may have shared before, but a confusing time in my life where everything seemed a little unsettled. Employment, finances, relationships, everything. I realized the thing that was working best in my life was just walking every morning and meditating. Walk and meditate. And I made a commitment to that. It rose up within me. Prioritize that every day. Move and meditate every day. Make that your commitment. God will take care of the rest. It seemed very clear to me at the time, which there's something clarifying about a vow like that. And it was amazing how by doing that day after day, for years, for quite a while, rain or shine, no matter what, was very energizing, and the universe responded in ways I couldn't have imagined. Things became clearer. Things began to work out. Employment began to work itself out. Finances began to work itself out. Better health and clarity of mind began to arise. Less depression, more joy. Channels of opportunities began to arise more. The universe rushes to support us when we take a stand and open a channel in that way. When we make a commitment that's in alignment with our higher nature, God responds. God responds to us. So that's the first big one. Universe responds, rushes to support us. Second one about vows is that vows go hand in hand with forgiveness. They just go together. As we affirm a new powerful intention, we let go of the mistakes of the past. We have to. You can't do them both. You can't drag the rags and relics, that's a phrase from Emerson, the rags and relics of the old hour into the new day, and be prepared for the new day and energized for the new day. You have to leave them behind you. Let go of the regrets about mistakes made, things like that. Anybody who's ever been in a 12-step group certainly knows this. You do an inventory, you make amends as you're kind of setting your new and powerful intention moving forward. And you do that, with you may ask for forgiveness from others that you may have offended, but whether they forgive you or not is not a matter, that delays or blocks you in any way. You just need to do it so you can leave it behind and move forward, empowered. You've made this new commitment. You've made this oath, this vow. It's very empowering. And it goes hand in hand with that letting things go. You can't bring those things forward. You can't be mired in regret and empowered to move forward with your oath about this new way you want to live. Jesus, I think this was evident in the Gospels quite a lot. In all his the incidents we read about in the Gospels where he's doing healing and teaching work, encountering people who have made lots of mistakes and are in difficult places in their lives. And after a healing or a teaching, he would often say, go and sin no more. Go and sin no more. It was a phrase that came up often. That word has heavy religious baggage around it nowadays, wouldn't you say? That word sin, but it's actually in Aramaic, the meaning was much more neutral. It was like correct your aim. Correct your aim. It was to miss the mark. That was more the Aramaic translation of it, to miss the mark. So Jesus was saying more like, aim better next time. Correct your aim a little bit. You've missed the mark a little bit here, but go, leave it behind. Leave that behind you. And that's important. That's a really important thing to keep in mind, that as we make a vow, there may be some forgiveness involved in it, and let that be. Release it, let it go. Let yourself off the hook. Let everybody off the hook, so that we can all move forward with these higher goals and vows to empower us. I may have shared this story before, but I've thought about him often. A man, I saw a lecture by him, Russell Colts, who teaches anger management courses in prisons and places like that. And he's doing powerful work in the world. I think it's amazing. And of course, it arose from his own struggles with anger, learning to manage his anger, and how he moved through that. And it really began with an oath. It began with a vow. He'd always had a kind of he acknowledges it up front, kind of an irritable temperament. Anger would be triggered pretty quickly in him. And it came to a head, particularly after he got married and after they had their first child. Little crying babies that don't go to sleep can be irritating. And he realized, his child was about 3 months old, and he was trying to work, and it was one of those times when the baby just wouldn't go to sleep again and again, and he felt such irritation and anger rising, he almost wanted to go in and yell, over the crib, and he caught himself. He said, "It shocked me awake. Shocked me awake." And he realized This wasn't the kind of man he wanted to be. He wasn't the kind of husband, wasn't the kind of father, wasn't the kind of family he wanted to have, that he knew he had to do something about his anger. And he began that work, and he read, and he studied, and he got counseling. He was a psychologist, and he kind of expanded his practice in this whole new area as he learned to work with his own anger. And the universe rushed to support him. He made that commitment. I'm never again going to lose control of my anger. Not going to happen again, because that's not who I want to be. So he made this vow in alignment with higher self. The universe rushed to support him. He began to guide others and to, just kind of automatically be invited to do things like counsel with some men in prison, doing that. That's become quite a big part of his practice now. He's developed this expertise in anger management, and he's helping others overcome this challenge, learn to manage their anger so it doesn't destroy their relationships and their lives, and has completely transformed his personal life, of course. No burdens on his conscience, of course. Forgiveness goes hand in hand with this. Let that behind, mistakes of the past, no bearing on the present. The power of the vow, it's kind of cleansing, focusing. And as we make it, the universe rushes to support us. New energy, new opportunities, greater strength of self and purpose. So the universe rushes to support us when we make a vow. It goes hand in hand with forgiveness. It kind of follows as a basic one, but that vows have a steadying influence on us. I think that's a really helpful thing to keep in mind, especially if we're in a shaky time in our lives where we're a little unsteady and unclear. A vow might help. A vow might help. It has a very clarifying, steadying influence on us. It reminds me of a scripture, "Thou wilt keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on thee." If our minds are stayed on the good, on peace, on God as our guiding power and presence, if our minds are focused on something like that, we'll be kept in peace. We'll be centered in peace. I think this is something we can do day by day. And the great thing about vows is they can override personal preference. When you make a vow to do something, it'll override our shaky personal preferences, or how we're feeling today. Like my vow to move and meditate, walk and meditate every day. Before that, I was shakier in that. Well, I don't really feel like it today. I just don't have much energy. It becomes a kind of a questionable thing. I may or may not do it. And so as a result, I may or may not get the benefit, of that. But once you make a commitment to something and it becomes a habit for you, it's very clarifying. You don't have to think about it anymore. You do it. You just do it. That's very powerful. I have a morning yoga routine I do now that I just don't, no matter what, I do it. If I'm not feeling good, still do it. I don't have to do it really, really well every day, but I do it every day. Something like that. And I bet everybody in the room has something in your life you just do. You've decided it's good for you and you're going to do it. And once you kind of commit in that way, it's very clarifying, focusing, and liberating in a way. No more hedging and hemming and hawing every day, thinking and rethinking how you're going to live. It's really helpful to have something that focuses you in that way. In all kinds of ways in our life, we can tap into that steadying influence of a vow that overrides personal moods, whims, preferences. I was remembering, again, a person who was counseling with about marital issues years and years ago, and he was really working with the idea of how he was struggling to change his wife, make her better, make her different, in ways that he thought she should change. This is familiar territory, isn't it? It's pretty not surprising, these kind of issues. I think they're pretty common. And he shared that he got to a point where he asked himself, can I accept her if she never changes? And he just decided to, he asked himself that question, and he decided he could. Of course he could. That's why he married her, because of all these fine qualities. So he made a commitment to drop no more criticism, judgment, No more misery of criticism, judgment, comparison, evaluation, day by day. No more judgment. I'm in. Very steadying. It made a big difference in the quality of their relationship. It was all uphill from there. That's years and years ago now. And their grandparents and maybe great-grandparents by now moved out to the West Coast years ago, probably married more than 40 years now. That was a turning point where he realized he was making himself miserable with this day-by-day questioning, evaluating, judging, comparing, criticizing, and challenged himself to reflect on that. Can I make an oath here? It's very energizing, it's very clarifying to make a commitment, to make an oath like that. It overrides the whims and the preferences, the judgments. It overrides that because you've committed to it, you've made a stand for it, and you believe in it. So vows have a steadying influence. And the fourth one, and this is one I think of a lot in the day-to-day experience of life. The effectiveness of a vow is not tied to external results. That's kind of a deep one to reflect on. The effectiveness of a vow is not tied to external results. We feel tremendous benefits from them, even if outer impact seems to be minimal. I think about it in a lot of different ways in life. And it seems important to keep in mind, particularly in times when it seems like there's so many large issues we can't do much about. Do you know the feeling? Just, a lot of big problems that any one of us feels, unable to do much of anything about. We deal with this. We deal with this sometimes every day in some way or another, and we sometimes get discouraged because it feels like we can't make a dent in the bigger issues or concerns of our day. But we do it anyway. That's my affirmation. Do it anyway. We do it anyway. Let's say that I do it anyway. I do it anyway. It's an empowering thing, especially when it seems like a small gesture in the face of large issues doesn't amount to much. It does amount to a lot, because it still empowers us. It still gets us clear on who we are and what our values are, and we're in alignment with them. So we get the energy from that. We get the focus. We get the clarity of mind and heart. And often those small efforts accumulate in ways that can amaze us. How they build, how they gather together. Doing it anyway, doing small things that supports our integrity, keeps us true to ourselves, and it has more power than we imagine, even when it seems like a little thing. And I think it's true in any area of our lives. I was thinking about it in little, small, humble, daily ways, like environmentally. I made a vow a couple of years ago, no more plastic water bottles for me. I am not contributing to it. I'm not buying another one. I'm not taking another one from anybody. However well-intentioned, no more plastic water bottles. I don't want to contribute to it. Well, that one little plastic water bottle isn't going to make a big difference on the earth, but it keeps me clear on what my intentions are. I made a similar vow about styrofoam. I don't take styrofoam containers anymore for anything. I won't take a styrofoam cup. I won't take a styrofoam takeout box from a restaurant. I'll interrogate them first. What kind of container do you have? Is it styrofoam? Oh, I'm sorry. The ideal now is to take my own takeout containers, or often I'll pass if they're going to give me styrofoam. To me, it feels like that's where I want to be, is in alignment with that. I don't practice it perfectly. It's hard to practice not using plastic across the board, but little things make a difference. And they certainly make a big difference for me in how I feel and how my energy flows, and my integrity and my sense of being in alignment with it. The power of a vow, of a promise, isn't tied to how much impact it has externally. It's tied to how it makes us feel on the inside, and where we're aligning ourselves. And do we feel like that energy is flowing through us, and we're true to ourselves to the best of our ability? And then sometimes it's amazing how much that can contribute, a lot more than we realize. Whatever the situation, in relationships, in work situations, somebody that works in a big company and may not feel like something they do makes a big difference. It can make a big difference to speak your word, to be in your integrity. Even if you're in a large corporation where it seems like a lot of the decisions aren't going in the way you think they should, you make your stand for how you feel, and you are empowered, and you are energized, and you are clear about who you are in any kind of organization. That's how we stay in touch with God in us, I think. Making promises, making vows, moment by moment, day by day, situation by situation, staying true to that, whatever that commitment is to that higher self we are and want to be and keep growing into. The power of vows to steady us, to liberate us, to keep us clear, to keep our energy flowing in every dimension of our lives, personal, communal, mental, spiritual, relational, when we're guided to make a vow. And God is likely to bring that. If you don't know what commitment that might be alert to God in you. What's the guidance coming? Is there a vow you need to make? Is there something you need to take a clearer stand on, a stronger stand on, because it supports your growth into all you can be in your integrity and in your wholeness? And if so, what is that? What is that vow? I promise myself what? I vow to what? When we're guided to make a vow like that, following that guidance that rises in us, help will come. The universe will support us. Guidance will come. Greater steadiness will come in. Greater peace. Greater energy will flow. Creative ideas will come more rapidly, more readily. We'll have a clearer sense of purpose, of direction, and a deeper sense of confidence and peace and self-esteem, because we're living to the best of our ability according to our highest values. And we're committed to letting God keep guiding us in the path of our unfolding good. So, let's emulate St. Patrick on St. Patrick's Day. Seems a really good time to reflect on, do we want to make a powerful vow that will guide and protect us as the monks in Ireland were, who transformed into gentle deer by letting God guide us and trusting that guidance for us day by day. I think we tap into that same power. But here's my affirmation for St. Patrick's Day. I vow to let God guide me through life. Want to join me in that? I vow to let God guide me through life. Let's take that into prayer and feel the clarifying, energizing power of that vow. We're going to be alert to God's guidance for us, ready to follow it, ready to commit ourselves to our highest good as God directs. We know the universe will support us moment by moment, will open doors of opportunity before us, will unburden us of any mistakes or regrets of the past, will give us peace and strength and guiding wisdom moment by moment, day by day, for that is the activity of God in us, and we are grateful. So it is. Amen.